How to donate effectively and avoid telemarketers. So I did a video last year about the ultimate status symbol and creating your own charitable foundation. So to donate and like make a difference in the world. So I'm very proud today to have an interview with John Bromley. So he's the founder and CEO of Charitable Impact, which is the company that we use for this. And he's actually been helping Canadians donate much more effectively. So he was motivated to make giving more accessible and participatory. So he founded Charitable Impact, which has proudly facilitated more than 1.5 billion in donations and is helping tens of thousands of individuals discover their innate generosity, pursue their vision for change, and transform their giving habits. So John is a two-time TEDx speaker, and you can find those online. He's also a winner of the Business in Vancouver 40 Under 40, a soccer coach, and a doting father of two. Anything else to add about you, John?
No, it's funny listening to people talk about you. That's all. Thanks
Yeah.
for that introduction, Ed. It's really nice to be here.
All right. So just to start, why did you start Charitable Impact?
Ultimately, it was the recognition that if you're someone who wants to, give back to the community, there's really nowhere for you to go to get a tool that helps you or to get any advice or help along the way. So Charitable Impact was created for the donor to help them with their giving journey, regardless of what causes they care about, regardless of what charities they end up choosing to support, and even regardless of how much money they choose to give away. So Charitable Impact is a donor-centered tool and service that helps people give back.
And so how does Charitable Impact work for donors?
Well, so the tool itself is something called a donor advised fund, and that's a term not lots of people are familiar with, but it is something you can go and look up online. Donor advised funds have been around for decades and decades and decades. And what it is it's kind of analogous. It's sort of like having your own bank account that's just for giving, though, just for charitable giving. So the way it works is you add money to it, and when you do that, you're making a charitable donation. So you get a tax receipt right away. That money can then sit in your account. We call it an impact account. Can then sit in your account, and when you're ready, you can use the money that you've donated, to put to use the way you want to. You can, for example, give it to any registered charity in the country. You can also send the money to someone else for them to give away. For example, I give my kids a charitable allowance. The other thing that's important to note, Ed, and one of the reasons why we've worked together is because when money's in your impact account, you can also make investments with it. So if you're not quite sure yet what to do with the money, or if you've donated a large amount of money and you're not quite sure what charities you want to, give it to or how exactly you want to spend it, you can also make investments. You can recommend investments from your donor advised fund and to earn some tax-free income, for your charitable account while you determine how to give the money away to charities of your choice, for example.
Yeah, I find that to be such a useful thing because, like, instead of just making a one-time donation to a charity, you could invest some money and then you could donate directly from your own charity, and that can happen every year for a year. It could be there long after you're gone, and then if you talk to a charity, you could actually tell them, look, I'm going to give you X amount of money every year forever, and they could start a program with it, or they could do something more with than just a one time thing. I think also I find like some people have a fair amount of money and they want to donate a chunk, not quite sure who to donate to, and don't necessarily want to give it all at once. And this is kind of a way that you still see the investment. It's not yours anymore, but you see it grow. And sometimes with clients that they're planning to donate every year. So you can put one lump sums in once, and that kind of does all your donations that you were going to do, down the road. And you could take into account that the money is going to earn some return.
Yeah. And those are all really great examples. I mean, obviously you're experienced at working with people and helping them think through these things. So the donor advised fund or the impact account, what we call it at Charitable Impact, is very useful in those scenarios and others, but the scenarios you described, like someone who maybe is wanting to be thoughtful about, optimizing the amount of money they give away and being thoughtful about tax, for example, and they want to give away a lump sum. They might want to use publicly traded securities, for example, to fund that donation, and then spread that money around to multiple charities. So what the donor advised fund does in that example is it lets you centralize your giving into one spot. And when you're ready and comfortable, confident in the charities that you've chosen to give to, send them whatever exact amount you want, which doesn't have to be the full amount of what you donated. So you can spread it around. So in that regard, the donor advised fund really helps you centralize, helps you manage your giving. It helps you track your giving, because if it all happens from one spot, kind of like your bank account, you can look back and go, how did I spend my money? Oh, where did it go? Oh, gee, I really supported a lot of stuff in the environment last year. Do I want to keep doing that? Or do I want to think about something else like education or poverty relief or whatever you're into?
Right, exactly. So how's a donor advised fund different from a private foundation?
So that's a good question. A private foundation is itself a registered charity. A donor advised fund is an account that you have under the umbrella of a registered charity. So in a donor advised fund scenario, there's many different types of donors that will use their own donor advised fund under the umbrella of a registered charity. So for example, at Charitable Impact, we are a registered charity. We're a public foundation as opposed to a private foundation. And there's, thousands and thousands of different people who use their own account under Charitable Impact. So it's really fast to set up. It's web-based, like in our case, where we create a web-based tool for people. You can log in, you can see an account, you can make giving recommendations from there. And there's support around it. There's a team that you can call. You can talk to me, but there's a team that you can call and philanthropic advisors that we employ that can help you explore what you're trying to achieve and answer the questions along the way. In a private foundation, you're registering your own charity. So you're creating a nonprofit organization. You're then sending it to Ottawa and saying, please make this a registered charity. You have to put your own board of directors in place. You have to open your own bank accounts. You have to, issue your own tax receipts to yourself. You get the money out the door to the charities, by sending them a check or whatever you're going to do. So the user experience, generally speaking, for a donor between a private foundation and a donor advised fund is the same. You have an account, you can donate to it, you get your tax receipt right away, you can send the money to any registered charity, any qualified donee of your choice. But in the private foundation, you're managing it all yourself. There's a lot more work for you in a private foundation. There's a lot more expense, generally speaking, but you have outright control. You have outright control over it.
Yeah, then you have to file all kinds of papers with the government, do tax returns, and follow all the rules to stay a charity. And for me, I think of a donor advised fund, the way it looks to us is it looks exactly like it's a private foundation, except we didn't have all that work. Like, it really is our own charity. Technically, it's a sub account of Charitable Impact, but really it's our own charity that we can do whatever we want with, right? As long as we can donate to whoever we want with it. We can invest it, whatever. Yes.
Yeah. So the experience of having a donor advised fund is very analogous to having a private foundation. It sort of feels the same, but there's way less administration. And often in donor advised fund, there's more support. I mean, one other interesting point, actually, you say private foundation, and what that means is that it's controlled tightly. Like, it's like me and my sisters are on the board, and it's like controlled by a family, for example, or controlled by a corporation. That's why it's called a private foundation. But because it's its own registered charity, all the data about that charity is made public. So you don't have any privacy in a private foundation. If you know what you're doing, like someone like me, and any Canadian can do it if you've got the web, go find that registered charity online, see how much money was donated to it, see exactly which charities it's sent to. So there are some significant downsides to having a private foundation, and there are some significant upsides. So for listeners, if you are really serious about your philanthropy and you're probably going to donate a large amount of money, there's no official cutoff, by the way, but I would say 5 million plus, you should explore what is a private foundation and why might it work for me. Having said that, Ed, my background in the charitable sector goes well beyond working at Charitable Impact. Which I started. I'm the founder of that. And prior to starting Charitable Impact, I was involved helping, still counseling people on going about their charitable giving. And I've been involved registering many public foundations, charitable organizations, all sorts of things. So I'm very familiar with the tool, and it does it is the right tool for certain people, but generally speaking, the trend is very clearly towards the donor advised fund. It's more flexible, it's easier to use, it's cheaper to use in most cases, and it's easier to involve other people. Like, you can have a donor advised fund for mom and dad, and the kids can have their own donor advised fund. It'd be pretty crazy to set up private foundations for each of your kids unless you were talking big money.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, very cool. Yeah, and even with a donor advised fund, you can still have like a board, like it's you can bring some family members or whatever that can be involved in deciding who to donate to, or and also you name successors, right? If once you're gone, who actually is going to take over and make the donations from then on. Right. So it kind of still looks like a private foundation, but yeah, but it's actually
Yeah,
private.
yeah,
It's actually private.
yeah. I mean, technically they're different, and it's important to be clear on that. They are different, but to the average person, to a lay person who's not interested in getting in the weeds, the experience of having a donor advised fund and having a private foundation are the same. And the big thing is that they both allow you to separate the timing of your donations, which generates the tax receipt, from the thinking about how you're going to use that money to create the change you want to see in the world. And that's the important thing for all donors. That ability to separate donation from the grant making is the single most important thing that a donor should have in their toolbox, in my opinion. It's like having a bank account. It's like, why do I have a bank account? Well, because you can like take money that your grandma gives you or that you make in your job and centralize it somewhere and then plan from there how you're going to spend it. Am I going to spend it at a restaurant? Am I going to go on vacation? Am I going to pay my bills? And so the donor advised fund and the private foundation both create that separation between donation and grant making in the charity world for the donor. That's the useful piece because it helps people be strategic, helps people make better, smarter decisions.
Yeah. Is that why people use them? That's kind of the unique advantage of having either one of
Yeah.
them. It's exactly that.
Yes, that's the core value proposition of the donor advised fund. And all other benefits of the donor advised fund, for example, if you want to be completely anonymous and have the charity not know who you are, which I think of because of how you titled your talk with me today,
Yeah.
Ed. What was it about? Like, stay off lists, right? Like, so in a private foundation, you're not private. Everyone who knows how to look for information will know what charities you gave to and how much money you gave those charities when. But in a donor advised fund, you can be completely anonymous. And there's other benefits like tracking all your giving and sending money to, your kid for them to give away, like a charitable allowance. There's lots of benefits of the donor advised fund, but they're all a function of the macro benefit, which is your ability to separate the timing of your donation for the tax receipt from the timing of using that money, so spending that money to go to the charities of your choice, for example.
You get the tax receipt up front, and then you can make the donations later on.
Correct. Right. That's exactly right.
So yeah, very cool. Yeah, I mean, I called it the ultimate status symbol. It's like the Bill and Melinda Gates thing, right? So for a lot of quite wealthy people, that's often like they think, once I'm gone, what's my legacy in the world other than my kids? What's my legacy? And this could be exactly that. It's something that keeps donating 100 years after you're gone.
True. I mean, the status symbol of philanthropy is, in my view, and should be, because of the impact that you were able to create, right? Yeah. And so, and when you target that change that you want to create towards something that you're really passionate about, whether it's, disease reduction or reducing poverty or helping people advance in their education, or if it's your religion, whatever you're into, I mean, that's really what the impact, where the impact is created. And that's what, causes people to, have a legacy, because we go, oh, who is responsible for, helping our church fix the roof when it used to get all rainy inside? Oh, yeah. We remember the Smith family. They were so great.
Yes.
So you can be public with the donor advised fund. You can certainly let charities know that your account is the one sending the money if you want to. It's just important to understand that in a donor advised fund, you can also be truly anonymous.
Yes.
And there's no way of being truly anonymous when you give directly to the charity, and there's no way of being truly anonymous when you use a private foundation.
Right. So, okay. So is it best to involve your family in the foundation?
I mean, to each their own on that one. What I will say is that lots of families find purpose together when they practice philanthropy together. But it's also important to recognize that there's an individual nature to philanthropy. So for example, I've got two sons, I got two boys, and I give both of them a charitable allowance for what it's worth. And they get $10 a month from me and my wife for them to give away. And they give to different charities. They choose different things. And I really want them to know that they have their own agency. They're allowed to make their own decisions in life, right? Like they don't listen to the same music either. So one person buys this type of album, the other person buys that type of album. However, so in my family, we let the kids do their own thing, but then we also come together and say, let's also do something in a shared approach way. So the real answer is, what's your family like? What are you into? Why do you want to do it that way? Understand that, especially with a tool like the Donor Advised Fund at Charitable Impact, it's really easy to create new accounts. You can fund those accounts. And so you can decide, here's the account that our family uses together, and we make shared decisions about how the money's spent out of this account. But then everyone gets their own account too. And we talk about what each of us did, and we enjoy the fact that we're not all exactly the same people. We'll make our own decisions.
Yeah, I think it's a neat way to teach kids about financial literacy, because also, especially if they've also got an investment account with it, but also you're teaching them about the importance of giving. I find
That's an excellent point, Ed.
I found it so cool that kids can have one, because you think, well, kids are under 18, they can't have an investment account, right? But here they can, because it's technically a charitable impact fund. They don't technically own it. But
correct,
right?
But it is an important tool. You can teach kids a lot about financial literacy, a lot about responsibility, the agency they have to make their own decisions in life, that when they give their time and talent and money to things that they care about, change does get created. Charitable giving is an excellent tool to have in your bag, so to speak, as you're developing and raising kids. And to your point, Ed, that can include financial literacy at the level of learning about investments. So charitable giving is a really great tool that goes beyond the change that's created with the time and money given away, because it also impacts us and develops us as human beings.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So including your kids, it is a good idea. You need to have a succession on here. Like what happens once you're gone? Like, so my wife and I have one. So once we're gone, who actually is going to run this? See, they got to name somebody. Most people would probably name their kids. Right?
Yeah, most people. I mean, who knows? But yeah, you can name a successor to take over a donor advised fund, kind of like, if I die, who's going to take my seat on the board of my private foundation? Same type of idea. You can also tell your donor advised fund to give money to someone else for them to give away. And of course, you can tell your donor advised fund, when I pass, send my money to these charities. So people should be planning. People who take their donor advised fund seriously should be planning what happens if they get hit by the bus, so to speak, or when their time comes. And planning succession into their giving world is as important as planning your succession into your own for-profit finances.
Yeah. So why don't we talk about that a bit more? Like, so what happens to your donor advised fund after you die?
Well, if you've named a successor, that person would take over the administration of your donor advised fund, that person or those people. If you've asked your donor advised fund to wind up and send the money to these, to the charities that you've named, then the donor advised fund, the capital in the donor advised fund would ultimately go to zero. And those other charities would have that money to spend. So it's really a choice. And you could do both of those things. You could say, hey, I'm going to keep some capital with these successors, and I'm also going to ask that a bunch of money goes out the door, when I pass. So in the same way, when you're sort of like writing your will, there's a zillion different choices you could make. What's important for the donors to know is that they can make choices, and they can and should plan for what happens when they pass, what happens to their donor advised fund.
Yeah. So I guess you could set up an automatic, like give X amount to this charity every year or forever, or you have a new successors that take over, and then they decide who's being donated to.
Yeah, you can do either of those, or you could do a combination of both of those things.
Right. Okay. Does Charitable Impact help donors find the best charity based on whatever their values are?
Yes and no. Let's answer that question with yes and no. So no Charitable Impact will not tell you what charity to give to. Okay. to each their own. It's about the donor journey. So what does the donor want to give to and why? So what Charitable will do, what we will do is, with our team of philanthropic advisors, we'll sit down with you and say, like, who are you? What are you trying to achieve? How come? Why do you want to do that? And then, because they're philanthropic experts, coaches, whatever you want to call them, they know how to sort of guide you through the different type of decisions, to make. So probably, Ed, not unlike some of the work you do with your clients, you'll help them understand the options. You'll help them understand the pros and cons of different options. But ultimately, they will make the decision. That's the way we run things at Charitable Impact. It's our brand promise to donors. It's your giving, your way, but with our support.
Yeah, but you also have data on the charities, right? So if someone says, look, this is the cause that's important to me, what charities are in that area, or
Yeah.
I've got a couple of charities, like how much of that money goes to overhead, or how much
Yeah.
difference do they actually make?
Yeah. Good point. Ed, you're helping me out here, buddy. Thank you so much. So every single registered charity in Canada can be found on Charitable Impact. We have a charity profile on each of them. For example, what do they use their money for? How much do they spend on administration and fundraising, for example? We have that data on every single charity in Canada. Back to private foundations not being private. That's because every registered charity in Canada has to file an annual information return form, and that is made public. And so CRA makes it public. And so organizations like Charitable Impact can take that information, and we just try to make it a little easier to understand and display it. So you can come to our site, you can search for charities, you can tell us what causes you're interested in. We'll try to help you. There's almost 90,000 registered charities in Canada. So we have tools, like digital tools, that like web-based tools that you can search and find charities and learn about them. But then we also have a support team of philanthropic advisors who you can call and chat with, and they can kind of be your guide or coach as you go about making your own decisions and learning about what you could do with your charitable dollars.
All right, very cool. Okay, so John, you sometimes talk about the proactive donor. What's a proactive donor?
Well, first of all, what the opposite of a proactive donor is a reactive donor. So a reactive donor is someone who reacts to something and just gives the money right away.
Which is what most people do.
Which is what most people do. Most Canadians actually only give when they're asked. So first of all, it's important to hear me when I say, like, there's nothing wrong with being a reactive donor. Okay. But what you'll find is, like everything in life, if you think about it a little bit more and you like look into it a bit and you get comfortable with it, you take more responsibility for things, you end up, enjoying it more and feeling more confident in it. So a proactive donor is someone who is proactive about how they go about their giving. They sort of think about, like, do I want to donate? If so, how much money? When? Is it monthly? Making a recurring donation monthly off my credit card into my impact account so that I know $200 is going in every month, or $20, whatever amount works for you. Being thoughtful about that, and then kind of going, I know I want to support these two charities, so I'm going to set, a recurring gift out of my impact account to go to these two charities of, X dollars a month, but then I'm going to save some amount for something that I might want to do later that I haven't figured out yet. Or maybe there's going to be an emergency in my community and I want to have a little bit of money that I've already donated, like given away, but haven't allocated yet, that I want to, have to be able to spend on some things as they come up at my school or at my, to help my school out or in my community, for example. So proactive donors are just the same as, it's just taking that word proactive and applying it to how you approach your charitable giving. So proactive donors end up being more thoughtful. They end up being more planned. And the result is usually more strategy, which leads to them feeling better about their choices and usually also more impact in community.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, like we do over 500 tax returns a year for some of our clients. And for the donations, what I see most often is people have 5 or 10 or 15 slips. They're all small, $50 or $100 each. And basically they use it to make a telemarketer go away. Right. Somebody calls them up, I give them a little bit of money and they go away. And then I asked them, so did you find that fulfilling? And most of the time they say, no, I just, I got rid of the telemarketers. So,
Yeah.
I've been talking about having a donation plan. So my wife and I have one. And so we talk at the beginning of the year, who are we going to donate to? Which causes? Let's pick one or two or three that are important to you, and then give a larger amount just to those causes. And then you could already tell all the telemarketers when they call, just say no to them right away. Like, we have a donation plan. We've already decided who we're donating to, and just say no to all of them, because you've decided ahead, and then give a larger amount to those, because then you're actually giving something that matters to you. So is that kind of the same thing you're talking about?
Well, the donor advised fund, like Charitable Impact's impact account, definitely helps you easily manage and navigate those conversations. I'm not here to tell anyone what to do or what not to do. If you want to be a reactive donor, and if you learn about a charity when someone calls you about it, or when a friend, promotes it to you, generally speaking, I would encourage learning about the charity in those scenarios. I mean, take that as what we call discovery, an opportunity to discover something new, but then sort of go home and think about it. And if you want to allocate money to that charity, if you want to do that, then please do. And the benefit of doing it from your impact account is a fewfold. First of all, it'll be tracked. So you'll know when you gave to that charity, how much, and it'll make it easier in the future. You can understand what you've done with your charitable dollars. The second thing, which maybe I should have said first, is you'll be able to verify whether that organization your friend was talking about, or that's calling you on the phone, is actually a real charity.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
there's only real charities on Charitable Impact, right? Because it's the government that regulates, the CRA that regulates the charity sector in Canada. They keep a list of charities.
Yeah, there are
right?
scams.
Of course, yeah. We get that list we update our list of charities, for what it's worth, at Charitable Impact every single week. So, like, if you can't find an organization that you're trying to donate to on Charitable Impact, it's probably not a registered charity.
Right. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So I tell Charitable Impact, send $1,000 from my account to this charity. And then if they're not, you come back and say, can't do it because they're not real. Right. So now you've just saved me from a scam.
Yeah. Or, I mean, it might not be a scam, but I take your point. Like,
Yeah.
it might just be a nonprofit organization that's not a registered charity. I mean, you could still give to nonprofits, but not through Charitable Impact, and you can't get a tax receipt when you give to a nonprofit.
Right.
So go nuts and support your local soccer organization that's going to be a nonprofit and not a charity. But what you want to understand is that you're not getting a tax receipt for doing so.
Right. Now, you mentioned earlier about that other people can contribute to your foundation. How does that work?
Yeah, well, so two ways to do that at Charitable Impact. First of all, we have something called a giving group. And a giving group is like a page that you can put up, kind of like a fundraising page, or a crowdfunding page, and you can send people to it, and they can make a donation. They'll get their tax receipt right away, and that money goes into kind of like a group-oriented donor-advised fund, right? So that's an easy way to pool money with friends. If you have a book club, for example, that wants to give together, a giving group's a really powerful tool for that. And you can also use it, to get others involved in giving to, a cause that you care about, like to fundraise from people. That's the primary way people do that. I mean, I love it when people put up pages for their birthday and say, hey, instead of buying me a present, make a donation to my giving group. And then that's money that I get to decide how to give away. We see people do that with funerals. We see it do it with weddings. I think it's a very powerful tool for that. The other approach is, if I have an account and someone else has an account, I can literally send them money. I can say, hey, Ed, thanks for buying me dinner last night. You got the check before me. Really appreciate that. Here's $50 from my impact account to yours for you to give away, right? Or happy birthday, Ed. Here's $50 for you. I want you to have some charity dollars from me for you to give away. So those are the two primary ways of doing it. And what I would want listeners to hear out of that is, first of all, Charitable Impact has really cool functionality to help people achieve what they want to achieve in their giving journey. The other thing I want them to hear is that, like, you can make charity a part of anything you do, especially when you have a donor advised fund. Hey, it's my birthday. I want to raise some money into, hey, we're doing a big Thanksgiving dinner. I want everyone to, like, bring a bottle of wine, but also, put $20 in this account and we'll make a decision around the table and do it together. So donor advised funds, especially when they're web enabled, the way Charitable Impact has really spent a lot of time and money to develop a tool that makes giving more accessible and participatory. It creates an environment where you can really make giving a part of anything you want to. Hey, we want to make giving a part of our employee, experience in our company. Charitable Impact can help you do that. Hey, we want to make, fundraising a part of this event that we're doing. Doesn't matter even what charity it's for, or you can raise money for multiple charities, right? This is the context of why I believe or know that donor advised funds are such important tools. They really help people have a better time, a better experience with their giving.
Yeah, that's really cool. So what happens? I guess you got a page, or you can send people a link to that page. If your friend clicks on it, then it opens up, they put in their name and they're out their donation. And then Charitable Impact sends them a donation slip, right?
Correct.
So they'll get their own. So they'll get their own thing, but then it shows up in our account, and you can invest it from there again if you want to. But
you could, yeah. Once the funds are in your account, you can hold on to them. You can have them invested on your account's behalf, or you can send them to any registered charity you want to. Lots of flexibility for the donor. And that's what's important about the donor advised fund. It helps you manage and track and organize your giving, and it creates an environment of flexibility. So you can do what you want when you want. And that's important in the giving world, just like it's important in the for-profit, spend your money. Like, imagine if your bank constrained you in the ways that you could spend your money. I mean, no one would use that bank. The flexibility is a really important part. Helps you think and plan and manage for the future. So the donor advised fund is the bank account of the charitable giving world.
Right. That's a cool way to put it. Yes. Now, you did a talk online about the future of charitable giving. So tell us, what do you think is the future of charitable giving?
Well, first of all, I think it's a world where everybody who chooses to participate in giving back to community has their own account, so that they can manage and track their own giving, right? Create their own legacy. That's number one. And then number two is that giving becomes incorporated into the things we do. So it's not just all about fundraise for this charity here and there, reactively making donations. It's like, hey, you know what? I participate in a workplace giving program. And when I donate into my own account, my employer matches it up to $100 a month. So giving is a part of our workplace culture. I shop, and the brands I shop with, they give me sort of like a charitable rebate when I spend money with them. And that money goes into my own impact account, and I give it away from there, right? So I think the future of charitable giving is where you see giving the economy. The future as I see it, that future that I'm describing as I see it, is powered by the donor advised fund. And what's important about that is that means that each donor gets to do what they want with their money, right? Not everyone who uses TELUS internet has to, first of all, agree with what TELUS wants to do charitably with their money and support the cause of TELUS wants to do. If TELUS gives them money for them to give away, they can say, hey, I want to spend the money this way. So people who are fighting cancer can fight cancer. People who want to fight poverty relief can fight poverty relief. People who want to fight gender justice can invest into gender justice, right? So when everyone has an impact account, when everyone has a donor advised fund, giving can get integrated in the economy while still maintaining the donor's agency and freedom to choose when and how they want to support whatever cause and or a registered charity they want to support.
Right. Very interesting. So what are you focused on now, John? What's your biggest challenge?
Well, we've actually mentioned the Charitable Allowance a few times. We've just launched a product, through Charitable Impact to make it easy for parents or mentors, aunts and uncles to give a charitable allowance to the kids in their life that they care about. That's something that has brought me a lot of focus. And where we're going, for example, next is developing tools to make it easier to do some of the things that I was just talking about. So if you run a company in Canada and you want to make charitable, creating make charitable giving a component of your company culture without telling every employee that they have to like the same charities, for example. We're developing a tool to power employee workplace, giving
Oh,
programs
and you set one up for
and
every
things like that.
employee.
Yeah,
Good idea.
100%. Like if you work for us at Charitable Impact, we match the donations you make into your own account up to $100 a month.
Okay. Cool.
Right. So
Interesting.
employee puts in $100, they get a tax receipt for 100. We put $100 into our account, and then we use technology that says, hey, send the $100 we put in over here to Ed's account, once he's made his own donation, right? So you can automate workplace giving programs. And what's really important for people who want to, corporations have to decide between, it's not mutually exclusive decision, but they have to decide between, are we going to dictate what charities our corporation, is going to give money to? Or are we going to say to our employees, you can make your own decisions and we're going to support your decisions by funding those a little bit, right? So you'll see a lot of companies today have employee matching programs, but more companies would do it if it was easier to manage
Right.
and administer.
I've never seen one with a employee matching for donations. That's very interesting.
Yeah, you'll see a lot of that in the future. Big companies already do it today, but small companies, it's harder for them to manage it. So Charitable Impact can really solve that problem quite quickly. Every employee gets their own account, the company gets their own account, and you use technology to trigger matching donations and other things. The challenge that we face, you asked about the challenges. I mean, the challenge that we face is bridging the gap between I'm someone who cares about my community, but I don't really know how to go about doing it. And as a result, I don't. So our challenge is like bridging the gap between what humans as generous people theoretically want to achieve, but don't necessarily do it. Right. So our biggest challenge is sort of a behavioral economic problem,
That's
to
interesting.
use a highfalutin term.
Yes.
Right. And we're approaching that challenge by creating tools that help you integrate charity into things that you do every day. Like a lot of Canadians go to work every day. Let's make giving a part of a workplace experience. A lot of Canadians participate in soccer and they play hockey and they do other things. So let's make giving a part of, a sporting athletic club experience. And with the right tooling, you can do that.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, they find companies sometimes want to look like they're philanthropic. So they do a fundraiser among their employees and they've picked a cause, but for a lot of the employees, they kind of feel obligated to donate to it, but it's not really a cause that really they care about. But now their employer has picked it and you kind of feel obligated to do it. Right.
Yeah, the donor advised fund solves that problem. It lets
Yeah.
the company, if they want to, help their employees give to whatever they care about, right? So then if you have just to use a religious example, if you've got a Christian employee and you've got a Muslim employee, the Christian employee in the matching program can fund their church and the Islamic employee can fund their mosque, and they both get the benefit. And then this non-religious employee can fund their local hospital or whatever, and everyone gets to make their own choice to support what they care about. And when that happens, participation in giving increases.
Yes, definitely. It's going to a cause that you actually care about. Yes.
Right. Therefore, I'm more likely to do it and have joy doing it. Therefore, I will do it. That's why the donor advised fund is the tool to power the future of giving in Canada and other places around the world.
So for people that are larger donators, for what, because doing larger amounts, what should they know that they don't know?
Well, they may not know that there's a tool that's built for them to help them manage their charitable giving journey. And the donor advised fund makes it easy to do that. And it lets them separate the donation from how they're going to spend that money charitably, which means that they can work with people like you, Ed, to help them plan and be strategic about their giving. So that's the first thing to know, is that there are tools and support structures like Charitable Impact that work exclusively for the donor. Regardless of what causes those donors care about, or regardless of how much money they give away. That's the first thing to know. And then secondly, once you get in that world, that there are more efficient ways to fund charitable giving. For example, in Canada, using publicly traded securities is more tax efficient than giving cash away, right? So if you're giving a large amount, or if you're planning something and you have appreciated publicly traded securities, you should be giving publicly traded securities and not cash. It either saves you money, which is great. Lots of people like to save money, or it means you can give more money away, which means you can create more impact.
Yes.
And then the last thing to know is that whatever it is you or your family cares most about in terms of a cause, there's almost certainly charities out there working to make progress in that area. So it's important to understand that, like, it's not just the charities you've heard of that are there that you can give to. There's close to 90,000 charities in Canada working on everything from environmental, climate change related stuff to poverty relief, to education, to advancing religion. There's stuff related to the sports world. There's stuff related to arts and to theater and to music. You name it, the probability that what you care about cannot be supported charitably is very, very low.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. So I guess the biggest thing for larger donators is just how to make it tax efficient, right? Because they can put it in there all in one shot. Also, like we have a friend of clients that have non-registered accounts, and they've held them for 20, 30 years. So you've built up a big capital gain, right? So donating that instead of cash, now you don't have to pay, right? You don't have to pay tax on the whole capital gain. Plus, you still get a donation slip, right? So it's
Correct.
more effective.
Correct.
And then we've done them with flow through shares, and you can get like a 10 times benefit. So you put in 10,000, but it's actually 100,000 that's donated. And I think that's how it's that kind of thing that, the people that give large amounts to hospitals, you see all these names on the hospital all the time. Somebody donated 50 million. They probably didn't actually use 50 million of their money. They probably used 5 million.
Yeah. I mean, what's definitely true is when you get into the large donation amounts, it's almost certainly not cash that was used to give away, right? They donated real estate, or they donated life insurance, or they donated private company shares or publicly traded securities. Because, one of the secrets about rich people is they don't just they have lots of net worth, but it's not all cash sitting in a bank, right?
Yeah.
So most large donations, right? So most large donations are funded with non-cash assets. And for what it's worth, Charitable Impact is very, very experienced and quite sophisticated with that. So, I mean, you can give private company shares, with Charitable Impact. You can donate publicly traded securities. You can give away your life insurance and get a tax receipt for it. We've even dealt with real estate, right? So what's important about that is for people who have higher net worths to understand that it's worth getting some advice when you go about giving, and it's worth having a tool that's built for you as the donor and not just for the recipient charities that you choose to fund over time.
Right. Yeah, no, I think what you're doing is so interesting. It's it's a way to make it so effective for donating. Because I think exactly what you said before, a lot of people don't know exactly how to do it effectively, and then they just don't think about it and they just don't do it. Right. They kind of want to do something, but they don't know how to.
Yeah. So Ed, and this has been a great conversation, but your very first question, you just said, why are you doing this? And what you just said there, Ed, is why we're doing it. We want to be that place where Canadians can go and know that there's like an objective, like cause neutral, philanthropically smart individual that they can talk to understand, what's going on, so that they can figure out the how. And that we provide them a tool that they can use to carry out their journey, and they can get started right away. Because even if they know they want to get started by donating, but don't yet know what charity to support, that's fine, because the donor advised fund, the impact account at Charitable Impact, enables that for you.
Yes. Yeah. And we help, clients build up wealth. And a lot of times it's like, how do I actually make a difference in the world? And the truth is, you individually can make a difference in the world. I think some people think, oh, I pay taxes and my government gives foreign aid, right? But to me, that's not all the same thing. Like most of that money does no good. It just, just props up the dictator that's oppressing people. It goes to it goes to a government. It doesn't go to, to help on the ground. But so you want to do something where it actually makes a difference for you. You get your own cause.
Oh, I was just going to say, so on that one, so it's important to pay your tax, right?
Yeah.
Canada's hospitals aren't free. There's lots of benefit that comes from paying your tax. Here's the difference between paying tax, though, and philanthropy, is that when you pay your tax, the government decides what to do with that money. When you pay philanthropy, you decide what gets to happen with that money, as long as it's charitable at law, right? So if you're really into like helping advance the theater in your community, you can choose to allocate your dollars that way. So that's what the other thing we want all people to hear is like, look, pay your tax, but you can be tax effective for your own life by giving philanthropy, which you get a tax credit for. And with that money, especially with your donor advised fund in hand, it makes it easy for you to choose the causes that you want to give to. So you have a personal relationship to what you're funding with philanthropy. You don't have a personal relationship to what you're funding with your tax dollars.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and people have different causes, whatever's important to them. It's often somebody that they know that was affected by a disease, or that a certain charity helped them, or maybe it's their own church or something like that. So I actually read an interesting book a little while ago called Best Things First by Bjorn Lomborg. And, as a finance guy, it's the first person that actually tried to measure how much do I donate and what's the best use of that money for each cause, and how much benefit does that actually give. And the best benefits actually give you like a 50-1. Like it's the benefit to society or to humanity is 50 times what you donate. So that, okay, well, that's a great place to put my money. But it really makes a big difference. So we're actually trying to actually create a page, and we're just working on exactly how to do that. And because it's not a how do we do it around the world, right? But we're trying to figure out how to make my own charity, my own page where anybody can contribute to it. And then it goes to the best things first, and then it goes to these, couple of causes that are in the book,
Yeah. Well, lots of donors know what they want to support, but aren't as good at choosing the charities. And we could work with you, Ed, very easily to create that idea that you just said.
Yes.
We create a giving group at Charitable Impact. You can go to your clients and friends and say, hey, please donate here. Here's how I'm going to spend the money. I've done a bunch of research into what's most optimized. Here's what I'm going to use the money that you give here to do. And on the one hand, you're helping those causes. But I'd also argue for certain donors, and every donor can choose their own pathway, and every donor should choose their own pathway. But there are donors who are kind of going, I know I want to give money away, but I don't want to spend a ton of time deciding what charity to give to. And I like Ed, and I trust Ed. I'm just going to give some money to him for him to give away for me. And, Charitable Impact makes it easy for you and them to participate in giving in that exact scenario.
Yeah. Something we should talk about, John. We got to talk about it. I can use your help.
Hey, Ed, you can even put up your own money and match donations that your friends choose to give to that, right? So there's all these different things we can do to make it more fun and participatory.
Yes, excellent. Well, I can tell people to keep watching my blog. There'll be a page on there at some point, not too long from now, when we figure out exactly how to do it.
Yeah.
But it's a place where it can be, instead of you trying to figure out if you don't know who to donate to, well, here's one that's really effective,
Yeah. And look, Ed, you've given me so much time today, but I will say just briefly, that problem that I just described, that you just reiterated there of, I know what cause I care about, but I don't know what charity to give to. That's a common problem. By the way, in the stock market world, it's kind of like saying, oh, I know I want to be invested into something new like artificial intelligence, but I don't know which company is the best, right? But there are people out there who know. And in the charity world, there's people out there who know how to effectively give money away to certain causes in certain geographies too. And so Charitable Impact is also working on a program that we call cause funds, where community-based leaders, cause leaders, can come in and create what we call a cause fund. And then people who care about that cause can give to that central place where that cause leader uses the money themselves to give away with all of their experience. And so it's kind of like in the stock market world, kind of like investing via a mutual fund instead of choosing the stocks yourself.
I see. Or that's like picking a sector. I want to be in a sector. And then so it's not going to one charity, but it's going to several charities, all with that cause. Yes.
Correct. Yeah. And chosen by someone with real chops, who really knows that cause. right? Like these aren't charitable impact employees randomly choosing charities. These are professional community leaders from across Canada sort of going, hey, if you want to support like, Indigenous youth in, well, I'm in Vancouver, BC, like in Vancouver, BC, here's the fund to give to, and then, they can be transparent about how they spend the money. I really like the cause fund idea because notwithstanding the fact that I know a lot about philanthropy, I don't know all the best charities in Canada, and I wouldn't know how to allocate money effectively inside a certain cause that I care about. So that's another program Charitable Impact is working on. It's the cause fund program.
Well, excellent. So, all right. Well, thanks so much for your time, John. This has been really interesting. So,
Yeah.
you've been listening to John Bromley. So he's the founder and CEO of Charitable Impact, which he helps people donate more effectively. My name again is Ed Rempel. I have a blog, Unconventional Wisdom. It's actually the #1 blog in Canada for a financial planner. If anybody wants to find it, it's just my name, edrempel.com, or unconventionalwisdom.ca. If you're potentially interested in talking to us, we offer a free 30-minute consultation. Just go to edrempel.com/talk. And you can also subscribe to my blog, podcast, and YouTube. And all that means is you get an email once a week with whatever my new post is. The podcast is edrempel.com/listen, and YouTube is edrempel.com/watch. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next week.